Hello, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, depending on where and when you're watching this show from. My name is Denise Belisle, and I'm a serenity expert and positive intelligence specialist. Welcome to the It's All Good show. Lucas here for a chat. I'm really excited. Every week, I bring you a guest, a different guest that brings you insight on their own life and what they work on. And today I have Dinalynn, I know how I always say her name wrong, Dinalynn Rosenbush, and I'll tell you a little bit more about her as we go along. But let's talk about why I call this show It's All Good. First of all, it's my favorite cup. It's all good, and it's beautiful. It's big. Look how big it is. It's big. It contains almost like 4 cups, and I have water in there all the time, and it's good for me. So it's all good. Also, it's all good. It's just my way of living. It's the way I run my life. It's the way I deal with my life in general. If something happened, it's the past, so I can't change it. All I can do is say it's all good and move forward into my life. I was listening actually today a video of, I can't remember his name, one a major actor, and he said, play with the difficulties. And it was exactly the same idea of it's all good. When he was saying play with the difficulties, he was an theater. He was doing theater, and then he was supposed to get into the scene at a certain time, and something had happened and it wasn't his way. And then he was telling, he was a young actor, and he was telling the director, I can't get in. There's something in the way. I can't. And he said, play with the difficulties, find a way around it and make it good. And he was like, oh, okay. And I like that, because when we have difficulties coming into our life, make it a game, make it like play with it. It's all good. For me, that's the same way. I'm always asking myself, okay, what's good into that situation? Sometimes it's not pleasant right now, but there's always something that will come out of it. And sometimes there isn't. And it's okay, because you can't change it anyway. You can just be positive here and now and move forward and play with the difficulties. Like, I really enjoy that little talk I saw this morning about that actor. Eventually I'll find his name and I might bring it back. So without any further ado, let's welcome Dinalynn. And welcome, Dinalynn. I'm so happy to have you here. Dinalynn Rosenbush, she's a speech language pathologist, parent coach and mentor, and an author. So welcome, Dinalynn.
Thank you so much, Denise. It's lovely to be here on your show. Thank you for having me.
Oh, you're welcome. I remember you had me on your show, and it was a great experience, and I love what you're doing. So that's why I invite you to my show. Can you tell me a little bit what you're doing and why you're doing it, and how you came about to become a parent coach?
I sure can. Thanks. And I want to say, I love how you opened that up with play with the difficulties and
Mm-hmm.
find the good in it. And when I think about my podcast, The Language of Play, it has everything to do with playing with the
Yeah,
difficulties. So your opening today was absolutely perfect. You must have planned that. That was perfect.
it's all good.
When, yeah, it's all good. Perfect. So when I think about the language of play, I think about how it is that we communicate with people as a whole. I think about the nature of play. And oftentimes we think of play as just for children. And you asked me actually how I got into this, and I'm realizing that I took off in the wrong direction. So
She's already at
just like
10,000
that,
feet.
but it's all good. So
Yeah.
backpedal. In my practice as a speech language pathologist, I would work in the schools with children, and I invited parents to come into the classroom with me to work with their children. When they came into the classroom, I saw regularly, often, that these children will gain skills faster, because when they go home with their children, the parents, when they go home, they're able to practice in their regular environments. They're
Yeah.
able to practice during their regular routines. So there's more and more rich practice. And when they come to my room, then it's an isolated experience. So I started thinking I really want to teach parents how to communicate with their kids in their home setting. But then what I often found, the way I got from there to language of play, so I did that. I helped parents a lot. For 15 years, I did
Yeah,
that.
while you were in the school.
While
Well,
I was in the school, I
yeah,
coached
yeah.
parents for 15 years, had them come into my room. We had huge, great success. That was great. Then I had a big change in my life, which was actually late stage Lyme disease, very, very ill, resigned that position. And that's a whole different story that we're not talking about today.
Yeah.
But it's still an available story for people. So anyway, then I started thinking, well, what do I want to do next? And I thought, I've always wanted to teach the parents,
Yeah.
to really help the parents, because when you teach parents, kids learn better and they learn faster.
Mm-hmm.
And then I started thinking, well, how am I going to name it? What am I going to do? And along that, I started talking with people. And the common theme that came up that really interested me was the concept of play, and how play is something that is really important in people's lives, like adult lives.
Of course.
We
Yeah.
tend to, at least I tended to think of myself as work first, get the work done, then I have time for play.
Work and play. Yeah.
Yep, I'm seeing them as separate things, and play is to be earned. Play is to be worked for. In my time being ill, I had a lot of thinking time, and I realized that's just really wrong thinking. And I needed to change how it is that I thought about play. And I started noticing how it is that play is pertinent to adults. And we as adults, when we think of play, we often think, oh, Legos and blocks and dolls, for kids.
Yeah.
But play is more than that. And so I started to really study play, and play, the language of play, as the title of my podcast is, has to do with using the language of discovery, using the language of curiosity, exploration, experimentation. And when we think about problem solving, that's often play too.
Yeah, of
Because
course.
we're looking for the answers. We're going to try something new.
We're playing like a game of, like, okay, being an anthropologist. Okay, what's in there? What can I find in there? Let's dissect this problem to see what we can find as a resolution, right?
Exactly. And if you can keep that mindset of play, the mindset that we are looking for, and I guess what you said, play with the difficulties, that would be the mindset would be, let's explore it. Let's see what we can do about it. Let's see where it goes. Let's try something. But we have this lightness about us when we have that attitude that we're discovering, that we're going to attempt, but the outcome isn't always the focal point when you have that mindset of play. So fast forward, that was like this big growth and learning thing for me. And then when I started thinking about creating a way to communicate with parents about teaching their kids, this concept of play was still really in the forefront, because as an adult, I was realizing how much I needed to prioritize my fun, my learning, my joy, my entertainment also.
We have to schedule play because we could work all day, right?
Exactly. And so I wanted that concept in there. And then the light bulb went off, and I realized it's that mindset piece. When we get in that frame of thought and we look at our children who like maybe aren't behaving or something, we start to ask different questions. Our language changes. Our language towards other people, and we can say it's adults, we can say it's spouses, we can say it's adult children, or little kids, our parents, whatever. If we get into that play way of thinking, our language isn't, why'd you do that? It's, why are you doing that?
Asking different questions.
And that one,
and find out, because the children, the child that's doing a behaviors, they have a reasoning behind it, right?
They do. So here's a story. There was a boy, a third grade boy in the school, who was sitting in the gymnasium waiting to leave on the school buses. And he had his feet out in front of him as he sat there.
Yeah.
And he pulled his feet in, and there's kids walking around, and he put his feet out again and again and again. And so he got in trouble for trying to trip other children.
Oh.
I knew this child. He wasn't mean at all.
Yeah, that was not his intention.
No. And so I went to him when I learned of this problem, and I said, what were you doing? And he knows me, so he knows I wasn't threatening him, like, why are you doing it? I said, what was on your mind when you were putting your feet forward? And he says to me, well, actually, first thing he did was he looked at me And then he said, never mind. And I said, I will believe you.
Uh-huh. Uh-huh.
And then he was ready to speak.
Yeah.
And he said, well, I was watching the kids walk and they never stepped on the line, or really seldom. So I thought, I wonder if they'd step on my leg if I put my leg out. That's it. That's it. Just the simplicity of, that's all he thought. He didn't have consequential thinking, like what comes
I'm
after I
gonna
do
tip
this,
them. Yeah,
or
exactly.
what
Yeah.
happens if, yeah, he was young. He didn't really think about consequences because he's young. He's a child. For him, that was exploration. That was
Yeah.
play. It
No, I
was
like that.
discovering. It had nothing to do with behavior.
Yeah.
So,
It was not being malicious, trying to trip people. It was
right.
just playing. It was like, hey, let's see if he was actually looking for kids to step on his leg
Yeah.
in some ways.
And so his mind, in his mindset, then, if I call that word again out, it was really just set on discovering. And so when I
Mhm.
came to him with language that was like, huh, I know you and I know you weren't doing harm. So what were you doing? What was it that you were thinking? This is a kid that I also know went out, and his dad had told me one time, he went out behind the garage and he smashed all of our patio blocks that were stacked up ready to make a patio. I was so mad. Why would he do that to me? That's what the dad said. But again, knowing this child, I said, I bet it was cool, wasn't it, breaking those bricks? He says, yeah. I said, tell me about it. He says, they all made different sounds.
Uh-huh.
There wasn't any more.
He
It was
liked the
about,
sound of what it makes.
right. So fast forward now from like those little stories to the concept of how is it then that we can change our language when we talk to people?
Mhm. And everyone, right? Not just
Yeah.
kids.
How can we assume that it's good?
Yeah.
Because when
Yeah.
we know the people we're interacting with, we know, like our loved ones, they're not trying to be malicious, but they did something that was bothersome or hurtful or physically hurt or whatever happened.
Yeah. Yeah.
But when we really know these people, what if we came at them with language that was curiosity, that was, let
Wow.
me explore what's really happening underneath the behavior that I saw happen? Or what was it that you felt that was, before you said those words? Or what is it that we can do now to fix it? Do you have any ideas on how we can take this dinner we wrecked and change it into something good?
Mhm.
Whatever that, if it's simple or if it's
Yeah.
complex, we come at our relationships with that frame of mind. And if we do, other people feel heard, they feel seen, and we are connected.
Uh-huh.
And in my practice as a speech therapist, so many times the parents would say to me, my children can't talk, so I don't feel connected.
Uh-huh.
And so that's kind of where it comes full circle now. When we go at this relational interaction with words of exploring what's really going on under our children or our friends' behavior or words, we end up with a situation where our hearts are connecting,
Mhm.
which ultimately is a very much bigger goal.
Yeah. Well, wow, that's
Win-win.
awesome. I love everything you said, and what got me even more like light bulb moment is when a kid has a certain behaviors is not to judge the way we see it, but be curious of why he's doing it this way.
Exactly.
Right? Because
Because they
we
have a
see it
reason.
one way, and that's the same thing with adults, of course. But how often do we reprimand kids for doing one thing, but in reality, it's our filters. It's what we see as a result of what they've done that we're upset of. But if we could understand their mind, their mindset behind the behaviors,
Mhm.
we would be fiberglass. It would like, really? That's all you thought about? Like, because when we punish kids, we don't really punish kids for accident, right? But if we have a mindset ourselves that he did that because he wanted to do bad, then that's where they get punished, right?
Right. Right. And a lot of times it appears like that.
Yeah, yeah,
It
yeah.
appears like kiddos are defying, or they're
Mm,
trying to harm, or they're breaking stuff on purpose. But so often, in my experience, is that the child mind simply doesn't have the consequence in mind. They don't have 10 steps forward. They don't even have 2 steps forward a lot of the time. They just are so in the moment.
Yeah.
And so when we ask, with interest, what is that moment? We can discover an entirely different person than it appeared that they were being.
Wow, wow, that's pretty cool. I like that. I like that. And of course you can extend that to adult, because often we
Yeah.
we get upset when our friends or partners or at work, people are doing a certain behaviors, but they have something. It happened to me as doing something in an intention of creating one thing, and then people see it completely different and they get upset at me. I've done that
Oh,
because I'm weird, so I think differently. So I
well, no,
would
that
do
happens with
something.
everybody.
Yeah, exactly. But I do something in the intention of a certain outcome. Sometimes the outcome comes, sometimes it doesn't. But
Right.
then people see that in a different way, saying, "Why would you do that?" Like, why
Huh.
would you da 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 da? It's like, and then be upset. I was like, that wasn't my intention. I didn't mean to do that. And
Right.
but I'm curious though, because you describe yourself as a speech language pathologist,
Mhm.
but what I see more is better communication with people, and it's not so much people that have a problem. You're more like a communication expert, the way
That would be
I saw
another
that,
name for
right?
every speech language pathologist because we work on speech sounds, we work on language acquisition, we will work on social language, we work on like all these different pieces of
Yeah,
language, and not just like stuttering and voice and swallowing. We have like the umbrella is all communication,
that's
how
awesome.
to make communication more effective. And so yeah, that that is every speech therapist
Wow,
and
that's
speech
pretty
language
cool.
pathologist.
And why did you choose to concentrate on working with parents and kids? Just because of where you were at school, and that's something that was deep in
Well,
your heart?
it is. And so as a mom myself and now a grandma, um,
Oh,
yeah, and also I have 30 years of 30 my oldest is 30 now, so I have 30 years of experience with kids, and
and now
over
the grandkids.
and now the grandkid, and then as a speech therapist, I don't know, it's probably 27, 28 years, 30 years, but part of that was part-time, so whatever. So 30-ish years of working in the schools
Yeah.
with parents and children. So I have an expertise in that, which makes me realize that I can make change.
Yeah, yeah. And I'm sure you can make amazing changes to
Well,
families.
yeah, what value do you put on giving communication to someone?
Yeah.
You
Right?
know, when somebody
Raising
can't
kids
speak.
that are able to express themselves so that they are understood, they can make their point, they can, like, I would think that, every family could use your services.
Yeah, well, there's a truth in that because every child, like I have focused for the first 30 years of my career on kiddos that like are disabled by their inability to speak or use language.
Yeah.
So that's where I focused. In that process, I think I gained a lot of skills in learning how to coach parents by breaking those very detailed strategies that we use as
Yeah.
speech therapists down into incremental pieces so that you can give them away. And when you can give them to parents and they understand, then they use them. The longer term piece of that is that parents would come back to me and they said, you know what I learned about Johnny? I tried it with my spouse and it works. The funny thing is that relationship things work because what we're
Yeah.
doing is like the brain will get fired up, won't it, when it feels threat. When there's a fight, flight, freeze,
Yeah.
fawn, any of those
Yeah.
responses to which another way to say it is somebody got defensive.
Yeah. Yeah. Of
So
course.
all of us as adults, that can happen. But if somebody can use language with you that believes in you while they curiously explore what was actually going on for you and they believe in you, you don't have any doubts because you sense it, then you are no longer hot brained and the brain system calms down. You come out of that that fight flight response and you
Hmm.
come down into thinking much clearer,
Yeah.
and then you open up. and everything works better. And so this is it's not just for kids.
Yeah, no,
It works for
absolutely. I
people.
agree.
It works for humans.
Yeah.
And so even though my specialty is working with kids and parents, I've done a fair amount of coaching just with other
With the
adults too,
parents. Yeah.
because yeah, well, and even single adults and whatever, because relationship skills are the same.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I have to say, I just love working with people. So last night, I actually, somebody came over to my house and they said, I just need to talk with you about a relationship with my mother.
Oh.
So, this was an adult young woman who was just struggling with her own mom. And it was the same stuff. Can you go back to that relationship? Even
Yeah.
if they don't, can you go back with an exploratory way of thinking? And of course, we had to first talk through the pain that she was
Of course.
experiencing.
Of course.
But I always find it interesting how, whether you're a grandparent, a boss, whatever your role, relationships are improved when we can have that gentleness, that fun, that lightness, that belief in one another.
Wow, that's pretty good. And one of the gem that you said was about gotta find it back. You say so many amazing things about like understanding, like if you deal with adult, right? Like, because when you coach the kids, well, you coach the parents also, right? Because the parents need to be coached in order
Currently,
to,
I'm teaching parents and
yeah,
how to teach
deal
their
with
kids.
the
I'm not
kids.
teaching the
Yes, yes.
kids in this context.
So when you're teaching the parents, then you're teaching them, as you mentioned, the person came to you, and that's what I was remembering is like I say, hey, it helps with my husband too, because it's true, like any communication. And when you get out of the upset, when you get out of the fight or flight mode, oh yeah, that's what I was going to say. It came back to me, because when we upset, a lot of time is we don't feel heard. If we
Right.
feel heard, then we don't need to scream, because a lot of time when people scream at you, that's because they're not feeling that they're being heard. So if you just take the time to ask question and be curious, and be curious on why they are upset, and what was their expectation, and why didn't they get it, and why are they upset about certain situation, and ask more question. It's okay, tell me more. Okay, and what were you expecting to happen? And then when people are heard, the tension goes down and down and down, and eventually you can have a better communication with one another, and it makes a huge difference.
Yeah, exactly. And so my
Screaming
podcast,
back doesn't help,
right? Right. It's about our language, isn't it?
Yeah.
But it's not only the language, it's how we give our language. Our tone matters. Body language and our tone is part of our expression, it's part of our expressive communication.
Yeah. Yeah.
So our language is also um, non-verbal. It's
Yeah.
the tone, it's the
And also
facial expression.
non-threatening, right? Like
Right.
non-violence communication, the way you express yourself.
Right.
Because I was a video yesterday I was watching with, and it's the same in English, but it's in French. When we use the tu is like you, then it's ça tue, which means that it kills. Right? When you use the you, it kills. Like it kills the vibe between two people, like accusative, right? You did this, you did that, when you do this, when you do that. But as she said, when you use the I, and it's the nonviolence communication, is to refer back to you as opposed to pointing towards others. And when you use the I, then you talk about your feeling, you talk about your emotion, you talk about what you expect. And I talked about last week in my video, there was also like talking about nonviolent communication. It's huge. Everybody should have a course in nonviolent communication and how to communicate better, and the life would be so much better.
Yeah. And the nonviolent communication that you're talking about is a perfect partner for what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
Because I am talking about reaching out, and you are talking about expressing from within.
Yeah.
But they are beautiful sister and brothers.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm saying when we reach out, we're going to be in gentleness. We're going to
Yeah.
be in fun, in belief, in curiosity and exploration and discovery. That's the way we reach out. And you're saying, I'm going to express the difficulty from within, only from myself, not pointing the finger. Beautiful siblings to one another.
Because it goes both ways, because when you're reaching out, you're giving the space to the other one to talk about their feeling and what they feel, right? So it goes both ways, as you said. I mean, one cannot go without the other, really, in perfect communication.
Right.
You have to have one that's curious and one that's ready to express really how they feel and how they want to, what is their thought pattern, and what's their expectation, and what's their, why they upset, or everything like that.
Yep. Absolutely. Be ready to receive.
Yeah. And so now that you're working, with the parents, and you have your podcast, tell me a little bit about your podcast and what's happening in your podcast. So I'll put a link of the podcast in the show note so people can go listen to it. But what can they expect when they go there?
Thank you for asking me that question. I'm really proud of it, because I launched on January 2nd, and it clearly is something that people are liking, because I'm top 2% global ranking in parenting and in family and kids.
Congratulations.
Thank you. Yeah. So I'm really pumped. And I think that it's obviously, I believe in it. I wouldn't have created it if I didn't.
Of course.
And so I'm putting out lots of different episodes about how it is that we can improve the communication and connection within our families. Some of the episodes are people coming in. Most of the episodes are me teaching specific strategies for helping your kiddo, because it is focused on helping parents to teach their children. But thank you for bringing it up. It's kind of good for grandparents and anybody that works with kids at all. It is focused on kids. Well, parents.
But is it you interviewing people, or is it you going there on your own? So what's the format?
Most of them it's solo, because I'm teaching the strategies I know to parents so that they can help their kids. But I am not a know-all. So I have people like you come in that teaches things that I don't know, that I can't support. And I'm really looking forward to getting your episode up and running, which it isn't yet, because I'm currently in a series on auditory processing, which is how well do kids understand, or people understand, language that comes in, and then what we can do to expand that.
And I'm just trying to I don't think I can copy the name of your podcast, but it's the Language of Play. So if people look for the Language of Play, because the podcast name has lots of letters and
Yes, the podcast is The Language of Play, and it's blue and you see my face. And then the email is hello@thelanguageofplay.com.
Yes.
And eventually I'll have a website up and running at thelanguageofplay.com, but that's not quite running. Maybe by the time people listen, it will be. I don't know. We're close. There it is. I see it. The Language of Play.
The Language of Play. So if you search podcast, The Language of Play, you will find Dinalynn podcast.
You will.
Yes, absolutely. And if you want to reach her, then you can go to here.
At thelanguageofplay.com. I love it how you're able to put that on the screen.
There
That's
we go.
super cool.
So people can send you an email and reach out. And I think that's super cool. And listen and download the episode and place, comment, and review, because it's always great for a podcast author to have a review. Talking about an author, you said in your definition that you're an author. So tell me about the book that you wrote. Quickly.
Oh, thank you. Well, I am a contributing author to several books now. And the first one was based on my Lyme disease journey story. The story that I told you that was embedded.
Which is another time for me to invite you in a few months for you to talk about that. But that was the first one about health and about healing yourself.
That was The Gift of the Universe Through Women That Lead. And Orly Moore had contacted me and said, Dinalynn, I want you to tell your Lyme story in this book.
Yeah.
I said, okay. And then The Art of Connection I've contributed to twice. And those are just quotes and things that we say, and encouraging people inspirationally, and as entrepreneurs, and as leaders.
Wonderful.
So I've been in 4. And then last week, Kelly Filardo said, I want you in Guts, Grit, and Courage. And so we talked a little bit about the Lyme disease journey, which propelled The Language of Play. because it was that
That's
time
great.
out that allowed me to think about things.
Yeah. Yeah. That's fabulous. And you have a gift for people.
Yes, I think you've got the link for that.
Yes.
So thank you for remembering that. I had forgotten. So this is a link for conversation starters. And since your audience is probably not typically parents of young kids, they're probably a little older, I'm guessing that this conversation starters for parents and teens will be helpful to be able to have, well, starting conversations with those kiddos in the teen years, but also for any age. Because
Yeah.
sometimes when we are face to face with people that we see every day, we don't know what to ask anymore.
Yeah. Or we always ask the same old question and people are bored
Right.
to hear those
Right.
questions.
Like, how was your day? And
Yeah.
then what would you like to eat? Or, like we
Get
get in
out of
these
the
really,
routine, get out of the
right,
day to day, like, oh, it was nice outside today,
right. So
Yeah, I
whether
look
you're
forward to
trying,
download it. I haven't had a chance to download it because you just gave it to me, but I will check it out because it's good to conversation, and that could be a good icebreaker too, I imagine.
yeah. So whether or not you're talking to an adult or you're talking to those teens that tend to just go quiet on you,
Yeah, whatever,
in that 15 to
whatever.
17 years, it's something that will, you just have some starters to help them come out
So
of
give me an
that.
example of one or two of those.
Oh boy.
I know, put you on the spot
You got
there.
to remember, I don't know if this was on it or not. I made it like a year ago. Um, um, Tell
Or
me one.
create one.
Yeah, I'll just create one. Tell me something that made you giggle today.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Or, if you were to build a sandwich with ingredients you've never seen, what color would it be? People are
Mm.
like, what? But it's just enough to whether they answer the question or not, they come back with a question and you're in conversation, which of course
Yeah.
is the goal.
Yeah, yeah. Oh, that's cool. That's good. That's really good. Well, that's fantastic. So thank you so much for being such a gracious host. It's always good. Every time I talk to you, I learn something new. And also for me, being a serenity expert, being in nonverbal communication and being in the listening to others and reaching out to find a gift and play with the difficulties that I learned today. It's another way that I'm going to say it also from time to time from now on. Is it's so amazing because we both work in order to make the world a better place, you know
Mhm.
because if everybody would have proper communication, then why would we fight, right? Why would we be in disagreement? Why would we be in misunderstanding? Because when you talk to people and you're being understood, and if people talk to you and you understand them, why fight, right?
Right. I actually just love that play with the difficulties and make it all good. I wrote that down right when you were talking at the beginning. It's like, that's good language. I'm
Yeah,
gonna I'm
yeah,
gonna use that.
yeah, me too. Like when I saw that video, I have to remember who was the it was a big
Yeah, I'd love it if you sent
I
that
have
video.
his name on the tip of my tongue, but eventually Kane. What's the actor Kane? Like
Michael Caine?
Michael Caine. I think it's Michael Caine that says that
Okay.
because he's an actor, also play actor, and he did a lot of plays, and then he's also like a movie actor. Obviously, we've seen a lot of
Sure.
movie. So I think it's Michael Caine that says that, like the old guy with white hair,
Mhm.
right? Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Well,
So
I'm not terribly good at remember. I remember faces better than I remember names
yeah, I
typically.
know. That's why I was like, oh, what's his name again? But I think it's Michael Caine. Yeah. So play
Play
with
with the difficulty.
the difficulties, and as the same thing, it's all good. Like, I mean, whatever happened, because what I say is like whatever happened in the past, you can't change it.
Mm.
I tried so many times, to change the past, even if it's just few seconds ago. You can't change it. It's behind you. You drop something, and that's why I never get upset. Really, it's really rare that I will get upset because I'm like, hey, it happened. That's it. Yeah, right. I can't reverse that. How can we move forward? Even like a car accident, or you can't change it. You,
Mhm.
you, you can't. So
Right. And it's not easy to develop that, but yet when you do, like you have,
yeah,
you're in so much better of a place.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
All right, wonderful. So stay there. I'll be right back with you, Dinalynn. So thank you so much, everyone. I hope you enjoyed this show and you will apply what you've learned download the gift and reach out to Dinalynn if you want to have a consultation with her, or just have a chat and ask question, and then she can guide you on how she can support you and your family in having, better conversation and having languages that are supportive as opposed to threatening, to get people out of the fight or flight mode. So I encourage you to subscribe to my YouTube link, and it's easy. It's at denisebelisle.com. So it's youtube.com/@denisebelisle.com. And if you want to have a conversation with me, well, reach out. I'll be happy to book a time in in my calendar, and write down in why would you like to talk in the little box, and I'll be happy to meet up with you and have a conversation if you feel like you would like either to book into my show and be one of my guests, or if you would like to get some help into finding the gift in every situation in your life. So until next time, be kind to one another and have a wonderful week. I'll see you next week. Bye-bye.